made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
I've prosecuted hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 murder cases.
It did not happen.
So I think I've seen it all, and nothing boils my blood more than a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that's what this case is about. Hewitt, Texas is right outside of Waco. So you know right away it's a super religious town. A lot of Baptists live there. And I can relate to that because I grew up in Blessing, Texas, and I grew up Baptist. When you live in a town like that, whether it's your preacher or your priest, it's not just respect that they get everything. Everywhere they go, people just do this to them. So you're way more than just a normal guy in a town like that. And in Hewitt, Texas, for Carrie Baker, the wife of the preacher, to commit suicide, sure that the people around town couldn't believe that had happened. But what people found out later was even more shocking.
Hey, with 911, do you have an emergency?
Yes, I think my wife just committed suicide. My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, "I'm sorry," basically.
Is she conscious?
No, she's not. No, she's not breathing at all, no pulse or anything.
Carrie's husband, Matt Baker, says he and Carrie were at home. After 11 o'clock at night, she asks him to go rent a movie. He comes back to the house just before about midnight. He comes in. Carrie Baker is laying on top of the bed. She is not breathing. She has no pulse. He calls 911, and he is desperately trying to save her.
When the Hewitt police arrive, they see Carrie lying on the floor, wine cooler bottles on the bedstand, a pill bottle with 2 sleeping pills left, and the suicide note.
Matt Baker tells the officers that his wife has been seeing a counselor, and she had talked about suicide. More so recently, he says. The ambulance attendants get there and find, as he has described, Carrie Baker is lifeless, no pulse. According to Matt Baker, she was on the bed, but he moved her onto the floor. He's trying to give her CPR. He's trying to save her life. To no effect.
I met Carrie when I was in 6th grade, and I went to Waco Christian. She was always positive and sweet and kind, and she was just a nice, giggly person. Carrie graduated in 1993, and after she met Matt, about 3 months after they met, she got married in 1994. She was only 18, 19 years old when she got married.
In the town of Hewitt, Texas, Matt and Carrie Baker were the ideal couple. Happily married. They had 2 sweet little girls. He was the town preacher. I'm sure everybody loved him.
In 2006, Matt Baker is the preacher of the Crossroads Baptist Church in a small suburb of Waco called Hewitt.
If you know our children or not, this is my wife, Carrie.
Carrie believed that faith was very important to her, that her husband was a representative of that faith, and that her job was to support him.
She had her daughters. They were the love of her life. Kenzie was born first, then Cassidy. Then she got pregnant with Grace. Cassidy was Carrie's daughter who had passed away. She'd had a brain tumor, and it definitely had an effect on Carrie. She was sad, but she wasn't can't get out of bed, sad, depressed, that sort of thing. She had her daughters to take care of.
Matt tells the officers that their daughter died at this time of year, and always after that, around this time of year, that his wife became very depressed over the death of her daughter.
Matt, I am so sorry. I am so tired. I just want to sleep for a while. Please forgive me.
Tell Kenzie and Grace that I love them very much. Tell my mom and dad that I love them too.
I love you, Matt. I am sorry for the past few weeks. I want to give Cassidy a hug. I need to feel her again. Please continue to be the great dad to our little girls. Love them every day for me.
I am sorry. I love you, Carrie.
After reviewing the scene, the Hewitt Police Department then made a call to the Justice of the Peace to see how the rest of the investigation should be conducted.
In a big city like Harris County, the bodies are turned over to the medical examiner's office, and they do the autopsy and rule on cause of death and manner and means. In smaller counties like where I'm from, Matagorda County, my dad was a JP, Justice of Peace, someone who's not a lawyer, not an MD, not a cop, just a regular guy who got elected to be the JP, and they determine cause of death and whether or not an autopsy needs to be performed, which sounds kind of crazy, but it actually happens like that all over the South.
Carrie's death, in the view of the Hewitt police, was a straightforward suicide. So he didn't order an autopsy. The case is opened at 12:03 and closed at 12:17.
Waco is a very, very unique place. It's a Baptist town with Baylor University. People gather around. People know one another. They know what's going on. They take care of one another. Somebody has a baby, there's a meal chain. If someone gets sick, if someone passes away, same thing. Everybody rallies together.
After Carrie's death, Matt Baker's church family, they were devastated. They were a close-knit congregation. He'd lost a daughter, now he'd lost a wife.
In the book of Job, he's a very righteous man, but his wife is taken away and all of his children are killed. Everything is taken away from him, but through his faith, he's able to rise again and he gets another family, and God gives everything back to him sevenfold. A lot of people, and Matt himself, kind of looked at himself as a modern-day Job in that way.
Carrie Baker was found deceased early Saturday morning, and Matt wanted the funeral as quickly as possible. And so it was held on the first day after Sunday, on a Monday.
A week to the day after Carrie had passed, Matt was back preaching. And people were just, oh, we just got to be there for you. We have to take you in. We have to take care of those girls. And everybody rallied around Matt.
And it wasn't too long after Carrie's death that the shock wore off of the family members. They don't think that Carrie would leave her two daughters behind like that.
Yes, Cassidy did take a toll on her. And yes, every year during when she passed away, she thought about her. It doesn't mean that you stop life. You keep going. And especially growing up where we grew up, you rely on your faith and you keep going. It just didn't seem real that Carrie would have killed herself.
Within a couple of weeks of Carrie's death, the Doolans, Carrie's parents, they're going back to the police, giving statements.
Well, this is a statement from James Doolan, Carrie's dad, that gave to the City of Hewitt Police Department. He says, "In the beginning, I believed my sweet daughter took her own life. I no longer believe that."
They asked the police to look into this further, to talk to Matt Baker again, to consider doing an autopsy. Hewitt police were interested in helping reach their conclusion. And what do you need to know? This was a suicide. Carrie's parents needed help, and they called me. I'm a former federal prosecutor, been a lawyer for 30-some-odd years. Carrie Baker's mother, Linda Doolan, came to my office, and she wondered if I could help her. She's telling me that there were strange little hints that there's something afoot here. 2 or 3 weeks after Carrie's death, the daughters say the pictures of their mother on the refrigerator in the house are gone. And Matt Baker tells Carrie's parents, the girls, they need a new mom. They're ready to move on. It appears that Matt's erasing Carrie's existence.
Another thing that made the family even more suspicious, Matt and Carrie were on the Doolan's phone plan. They received a phone bill, and they noticed that after Carrie's death, there were a lot of phone calls made from Carrie's phone.
When Carrie's parents confronted Matt about this new activity on the cell phone that used to belong to Carrie, his answer was that he had given his wife's phone to another member of the church that he had recently begun counseling.
Matt tells them that he's giving it to Vanessa Bowles, who is going through a divorce, and they were just friends. And the Doolans started wondering, is there a little bit more to this than he's just counseling a divorced woman with a child?
As I'm talking to Linda, and I'm respecting immediately her assessment, and I thought this family deserves answers. Simply doing it was the right thing to do. That's why I became the Doolans' lawyer. And so we decide to do a private investigation of an unsolved death.
Not just in small towns, but anywhere. If you're a family member and you think that you need to have your own private investigation done to try and overturn law enforcement's thinking on a case, you have a very, very steep road to climb. First difficulty is always going to be you don't have any access to the real file. You might think you know what somebody said or saw or did, but you really have no clue. Bill Johnston knew what I'm telling you right now. This is going to be harder to do than y'all think.
We need something to use the law to get documents, to perhaps talk to people. And I came up with a notion. I think I'll sue Matt Baker for wrongful death. The crime scene photos are not consistent because of the condition of her body.
State calls Vanessa Bowles.
What she was telling was so horrible, and in fact, it gets worse.
Through the Doolans, I decide to sue Matt Baker for wrongful death, which is a Texas civil cause of action. We didn't want to collect money from him. He didn't have any money. We wanted to know what happened. Do we think he did kill her, or was it a suicide? I'll use the lawsuit subpoena power, the power of a deposition, to see what more we can learn. The biggest challenge in investigating a case that's been determined to be a suicide is that the police looked into this. They've already decided, and it wasn't questioned, because he was a preacher, a Baptist preacher in their town.
Law enforcement likes to think that they know everything and they're the experts. I understand that thinking because I was that same way. I didn't want private investigators trying to tell me what to do either.
We need a little horsepower here somehow. And so a Texas Ranger who'd done some great work for me named Matt Cawthon came to mind.
Texas Rangers are legendary. Their look, their reputation, some of them are the very best at what they do. Bill Johnson reaching out to a Texas Ranger was to see if he would help reopen the law enforcement side of this case, because somebody had to convince local law that maybe they didn't know everything.
I get there and I'm not only met by a team, I'm met by a war room. Pictures and diagrams and timelines. The first red flag regarding the initial investigation was that there were fewer than 10 photographs taken of the death scene. Even if something appears like it's suicide, be cautious, because you have one chance to get this right. If you don't gather evidence, you can't go back later and redo it.
To the untrained eye, this did look like a classic suicide scene. It looked like Marilyn Monroe's bedside. You have the source of the suicide, the pill bottle, and then don't use them all. Have a couple of examples. Here's a note.
To look at a suicide note that was unsigned, typed on a computer instead of handwritten, I would think that that would be cause for alarm.
And she was a teacher. There's no way she would spell 2 with 1 O and not 2.
It praises Matt and blames Carrie. Those tones are very suspicious, and put them on an unsigned type note and they scream at you. The questions that are very important but are beyond us, we need experts. Could someone ingest 29 sleeping pills, and could that kill them? How long would that take to kill them? How long does it take to get cold, to get blue? We had Tom Bevel helping us, who's one of the premier experts in crime scene analysis. We sit down with Tom Bevel and show him the crime scene photos. And Tom Bevel states that the crime scene photos of Carrie Baker do not match, are not consistent with the time frame given by Matt Baker, the 45-minute to an hour time frame, because of the condition of her body, the condition of being cold, the condition of being blue, the condition of lividity. Lividity is a discoloration where the blood pools in the human skin after someone has died, just the process of gravity. Carrie had substantial lividity in her body, 2 or 3 times what Matt Baker gave himself for a time period to be gone. Also, we learned it is possible that someone could ingest 29 sleeping pills and die. It's possible. But that process is, of course, to let it break down in the stomach, to make you sleepy, to make you pass out, and ultimately, perhaps, to die. That's a long process. Matt Baker was given great latitude in his story, and it wasn't questioned.
You hold your preachers up to a higher standard. You never think that your preachers are going to do anything like this. You don't even want to suspect them. It's got to be a sin to suspect your pastor, right?
Word had gotten around town about the circumstances of Carrie's death and her suicide, and then someone came forward with good information. Around the time her funeral happened, another preacher was flipping through Carrie's Bible prior to the service and found something very interesting inside. This is dated April the 2nd, 06. Peace. Lord, grant me peace. Calm my soul. I feel like I have so much worry and I can't get a hold on it. Lord, be the center of our relationship. Lord, I'm asking for you to protect me from harm. I'm not sure what is going on with Matt, but Lord, help me find peace with him.
She prays to God to protect her from harm. And then she also says, I'm not sure what's going on with Matt. After her death, Carrie's therapist contacted the family and said, listen, in some of my sessions with Carrie, she spoke about her husband having an affair.
We need to find out, was there an affair going on?
After her death, Carrie's phone was still being used. There was hundreds of phone calls between Matt Baker and Vanessa Bowles.
Vanessa Bowles was younger, very attractive, newly divorced. She was a single mom.
Why would Matt Baker give Carrie's phone to a single woman?
Now we're very interested to know, did this relationship with Vanessa Bowles predate the murder?
When you have a suspect and you want to know the nitty-gritty details of the murder, you have to talk to all the people that live in that world. So the closest people to the suspect are always potentially going to be your best sources of evidence.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
When you meet a witness the first time, like Vanessa, to try and get them to talk is a huge challenge because they might realize that society is not going to judge them nicely. And number 2, they might actually be involved in the commission of the murder. Or maybe it was just that she's the trigger, she's the motive. What is it in that spectrum? And that's why they needed to talk to her.
It's extremely important for you that you're honest with me about everything.
Vanessa Bowles is the daughter of the music minister at the church Matt Baker was affiliated with.
There's something going on here because there's so much contact between the two.
Did he ever say anything about suicide or he thought she would?
He told me she attempted it once before. After Cassie passed away, she attempted, and he had to take the pills from her hands.
We didn't know if she was an active part of this murder or was she just someone who caught his fancy.
At that time, you and Matt didn't have any kind of romantic relationship at all?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Did anything change when Carrie died?
About a month and a half after Carrie passed away, he came and said, well, I just wanted to ask you if we could start the dating process. And I just thought we were taking our kids out. He really wasn't my type, though, to be completely honest.
Right.
So, but I was thinking, well, if he'll like my daughter, I guess. And I loved his kids. You know what? I think.
As we're talking to her, we're not immediately thinking she's a big liar. We're thinking, well, shoot. I mean, I wonder if he saw more than she did. Did he kill Carrie because he hoped to get her?
He kind of made me believe that Jim and Linda were the horrible people who were pushing the whole investigation. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt sorry for him.
She was courteous. She wasn't rude about anything.
What was the conversation like when you told him she didn't want to see him anymore? Whatever.
He was upset because he said that he thought that that me and my family were going to be there while everyone was spreading rumors about him.
Mm-hmm. And you haven't really talked to him since then?
No.
Or when was that?
A couple weeks ago.
I think the investigators feel like there's more there, but they didn't see the vulnerable spots to go into. After talking to Vanessa, we wanted to talk to Matt Baker. Let me have him bring with him his computer and his printer.
Bill's a civil lawyer. He could depose Matt Baker. A prosecutor could never do that because in Texas, the prosecutors do not have a right to discovery of what the defense strategy is. In other states, like Florida, it's mutual discovery, so they can depose each other's witnesses and know exactly what everybody's going to say. In this state, we do not get to do that. And the only way Bill Johnston could get access to any of that information was through depositions.
We get Matt Baker notice for the deposition, and his lawyer is letting me know he's probably not going to answer any of your questions. I said, well, I want him to bring the items. So we're in the room. The deposition starts. Matt, you're under oath. Did you bring your computer? Don't have it, he says. I quit working. Crashed. It crashed. All right, where is it? Threw it away. Okay. Now, Matt, subpoena also calls for you to produce your printer. Don't have it. When he deprived us of the objects with silly stories and excuses, it's more damning than if we'd have gotten it. Matt Baker had a second job. He worked at the Waco Center for Youth. He was supposed to be their chaplain. And we said, we'd like to look at his computer there. Well, something strange happened. We don't have it. His computer was stolen. But one of our investigators went to the head of the IT department at the Waco Center for Youth and learned that, of course, everything goes to a server. So we've got what was on Matt Baker's computer. We had a great computer forensics expert, and he was able to actually go in and follow all of these trails, these little ghostly trails that the internet leaves.
We determined that, along with a lot of pornography, Matt was searching for overdosing on sleeping pills.
And ultimately, we found Matt Baker ordering Ambien from an offshore pharmacy a month before Carrie died.
The internet search is beautiful circumstantial evidence. The only thing about that is we need to exhume the body to see if you can find the presence of Ambien.
We need that body out of the ground.
Matt Coffin goes to the Hewitt police chief, hat in hand, as we say here, asked could he get his help. They needed to request an exhumation and an autopsy. And the chief looks at him and says, well, Ranger, would you be working for us or Bill Johnston?
And I said, I'm working for the dead lady, and that's who you ought to be working for, too. Finally, 3 months after Carrie died, there was an exhumation of her body.
To exhume a body, they have to graciously remove from the ground and remove from the casket and take to the medical examiner. It's a grisly process, but it's just part of what has to be done.
There's a huge risk to the exhumation of Carrie's body. You can do an exhumation and open it up when you get it down to the morgue and it's filled with water and hasn't been perfectly preserved, and you did all that for nothing.
The body had already been prepared by the funeral home, been embalmed and that sort of thing. But that didn't stop us from looking for forensic evidence through DNA.
Autopsies can detect things from your liver and kidneys all the way into your bloodstream, but so much later, they can't. And you certainly don't want someone embalmed. If Matt Baker is checking boxes in his mind of, I'm going to get away with this, I guarantee you he checked the largest box on his list, not having an autopsy done right after Carrie's death.
They were unable to test her blood, but they were able to test her muscle tissue.
The exhumation autopsy toxicology report showed there was Ambien in Carrie's system. They caught it. It was in her system.
Carrie Baker did not have a prescription for Ambien. The picture on the puzzle is Matt Baker.
We've got enough evidence to reopen this, which now means for Matt Baker, what all of us had known for a long time is that you, my little preacher under the microscope, you're the suspect. Each piece of this case, sort of stood on its own, but then was buttressed by the other pieces. Each one standing alone is helpful, but together they were fantastic. We felt very confident asking for what's called an inquest. It was a Texas Ranger, Matt Cawthon, who persuaded the justice of the peace to reopen this.
18 months after Carrie's death, Judge Billy Martin ruled that her death was not a suicide. It was undetermined.
Investigators knew as we're rolling along, this is a murder case, this is not a suicide. What's in the way is this suicide ruling. Everybody was already on board and in agreement that we're talking about a murder investigation. We have enough evidence. It's circumstantial. It's strong. It's compelling. The ruling got changed to undetermined from suicide. Let's file the warrant, and that's what happened.
Well, when I first got involved, I'm meeting with Carrie's mother. I said, listen, I'm going to work this thing. I'm going to work with Bill and his investigators. The only promise I can make you is that I will arrest Matt Baker. 18 months after the fact, we get a warrant for his arrest, and I got the satisfaction of seeing Matt Baker in jail.
My name's Crawford Long. I was an assistant district attorney for McLennan County for 30 years.
Crawford Long is a career prosecutor. His claim to fame was a serial killer case against Kenneth McDuff, a horrible serial killer. And Crawford tried that case, got the death penalty on McDuff, and became really one of the state's best homicide prosecutors.
I never had a suicide brought to me that was later believed to be a homicide. That was a first for me.
Texas Ranger from the police department arrested Matt Baker for the murder of Carrie Baker, which means at that time they thought they had probable cause to believe he committed the murder. At that point, Crawford Long didn't take the case to the grand jury of 12 citizens to get it indicted because he wanted to see if he could make the case stronger by getting Vanessa Bulls on board. So he put the case on hold until he could see if he could get that to happen.
Our office had a very good investigator named Abden Rodriguez, who was known for being able to question people and get information out of them that they wanted to conceal. And so we asked Abden to see if he could get her to give more information than she had been willing to give. Abden talked to her several times, and at that point she admitted that she had been having an affair with Matt Baker. After Abden had had the conversation with Vanessa, we felt like we may have a break in the case. We need to get her before a grand jury.
Grand jury proceedings are confidential and secret, but I was able to find out that they granted her immunity for her testimony. I'm thinking she's going to say something pretty fantastic, or why does she need immunity?
We bring her up before the grand jury. I questioned her, and all of a sudden there we had it under oath before the grand jury. I went down and talked to the district attorney and told him Vanessa just dropped the nuclear bomb on him.
To me, Vanessa Bowles is the icing on the cake. If you have Vanessa Bowles and she can tell you everything that Matt Baker thought or did or wanted to do, wow.
Matt Baker grew up near Waco. The people there were really supportive of him and didn't believe he could have done it. Before the trial, Matt Baker was trying to influence the public by giving his version of events.
Never a desire of me to ever hurt my wife, ever.
He gave a number of different interviews. He enjoyed the celebrity of it.
This case had so much attention in the country and then in Texas, and more particularly in the Waco area, that we were concerned that they couldn't get a fair jury.
I think you could always find a jury of unbiased people to sit on a case, but Waco, Baylor, McLennan County, that's about as Baptist as you can get in Texas. So you have a Baptist preacher that everybody's looking at and knows is the defendant, it's going to be more of a challenge.
The court process can be slow, but it was worth the wait because so much effort had gone in. We wanted it to play out just the way it was supposed to.
When the trial began, we were all glued to the TV because we wanted to know answers. It was on the tip of everyone's tongue. I mean, this was the biggest thing that had happened since David Koresh to Waco, Texas.
Initially, we were going to open the trial with the Hewitt Police Department coming to the scene. And the more I thought about it, to start the trial, I don't want to put in the jury's mind that she committed suicide. So we called several of her friends that told about her state of mind, that she was looking forward to things rather than being terribly depressed.
She had requested that her daughter be put in my first grade classroom for the next following year.
Did y'all talk about the new job prospect that she had at Midway?
Yes, she was very excited about that.
And then we presented evidence of lividity and the crime scene.
Most people would say within a few hours is when you really start to see lividity.
It showed that statements that Matt made were not accurate as to what the evidence was showing. We presented testimony of the drugs in her system.
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem, and its common name is Ambien.
Looking at the case, I didn't want to try it at this time as a purely medical case. I felt like Vanessa was really the key to the case.
State calls Vanessa Bowles.
The prosecutor's hope with Vanessa Bowles testifying was that she would tell the down and dirty, that she would talk about the romance, that she would talk about the sex, that she would throw him under the bus. The problem is, she looks bad too.
So you were somewhat implicit in all of this.
For keeping my mouth shut and not doing the right thing, yes, I was.
There's a huge risk when you have a very crucial witness that you know the jury is going to hate. I have very good experience with that. In my case, it was a lady named Mary Gipp who knew that a cop was about to have his wife killed because her boyfriend was the middleman, and she also knew the shooter. And I hated her and she hated me. You have to get them to admit what they did, because if you don't do that, a huge part of your case is going to crumble and fall apart.
Vanessa finally admitted that yes, she and Matt had had a sexual relationship before Carrie's death, and it had been going on for some time.
Vanessa testified about how she and Matt first met.
Like I said, oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor, and kind of smile.
Vanessa told about her relationship with Matt, how it progressed.
What happened in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
It started talking about my divorce. He started quoting scripture, and then he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
And you said that in March he said something about finding a way out of the marriage?
Correct. He talked about making it look like she'd hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car.
He even talked about setting up a drive-by shooting to kill her.
Since she had attempted suicide before, he said he may be able to make it look like she committed suicide.
She just asked Matt, why are you trying to kill her? Why don't you just get a divorce? And he told her that he would never be able to preach again. I guess in his mind, divorce was worse than actually committing murder.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he mention putting something into Carrie's drink?
He did. He sent an email and said she did not drink the drink. She took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead.
What she was telling was so horrible. And in fact, during her testimony, it gets worse. The Wednesday after Carrie's death, Matt talked to her about how he had accomplished Carrie's murder.
Earlier that day, he had gotten sex stimulus pills. They were capsules that you could open. He said that he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them.
He used handcuffs as a sort of a date night thing with her.
He handcuffed her to the bed, started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. He said he kissed her on the forehead and he said, "Give Cassidy a kiss for me." Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
He is a preacher. He is a man of God, and look who he murdered. The mother of his children. What in the world did Matt Baker have to fall back on to justify turning into the monster that he truly was? Nothing. To me, he's as bad as they come.
He said that he thought she was dead, so he stopped, and then a couple of seconds later, she just took one big gasp for air, and that he said, "Oh," and then he showed me his hand. He said he put the pillow on her face, but then he said he did this with his hand where her nose was, so he would be sure to suffocate her.
The fact that she gasped for air and he went back in to kill her again. He even had that chance to, back out or whatever, and he went in and he finished her off.
Let's talk about a day in July of 2006. Did you call Matt?
I did. I decided I was going to call him and I was going to end things. He started saying, "I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving."
When she decided that she wanted to break up, he sent her a song, Dirty Little Secrets by the All-American Rejects. Don't tell anyone or you'll just be another regret.
I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
We made our final arguments. The devil can quote scripture for a purpose, and the jury was discharged to go deliberate.
I think that Vanessa's testimony in this case should put the nail in his coffin. But I don't know what the jury is thinking. How many people on the jury would want to give him less punishment because he's a preacher, beacon of the community that led people to God.
The longer a jury's out, the more you're worried about it. But finally, after 7.5 hours late in the evening, they returned.
The judge flips the papers, looks over the papers, has the defendant stand, and reads the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
Matt Baker is guilty of the offense of murder. Murder.
In Texas, of course, if a defendant's found guilty, there's a second phase of the trial, the punishment phase. And the jury will hear testimony about Matt that they haven't heard before to determine what his sentence should be.
Some say that's even harder for a jury to make a decision because in Texas, the range of punishment for murder is so wide. It's from 5 years to 99 years or life.
At that time in Texas, if you were convicted of murder, you could get as little as 5 years probation. That's your concern, because he's not just a first offender, he's a preacher.
Any comment on the verdict?
Remember, on guilt, your sole issue is, did you commit the crime? Did you commit the murder? So whatever horrible person you were otherwise is not relevant, is not admissible. Once you're found guilty of the crime you're on trial for, every other bad act that you've committed in your life can come into evidence at that point in part two, the punishment phase of the trial.
The gate is open and other things walk in.
On the punishment phase of the trial, we called several young women who testified that Matt was a sexual predator.
How did you come to know Matt Baker?
I worked with him at the Y.
Okay.
We had gone back into the youth rec room. He tried to kiss me, kept trying to grab my crotch, put my hands on his penis.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
We were student trainers together. I turned around at one point and he was standing behind me, and that's when he took his hand and began running up my thigh and between my legs and touched my vagina area.
12 women, that's a lot of women. That's more women than I've had witnesses talk about guys I put on death row. The other thing that made me sick is that a lot of that happened in McLennan County, the home of Baylor University, Waco, Texas, Baptist capital of Texas. And nobody listened to those women and did anything to stop him to file charges because law enforcement didn't want to mess with it or for whatever reason. Those women had a right to be angry and they had a right to be heard, and I'm glad they were.
He was using what he was in the community to become a predator. That's what he was. He was a predator.
Ultimately, the jury returned a verdict of 65 years. We were very satisfied that justice had been served for the Dulin family, for Carrie, for the community. She had not committed suicide. And the Dulins received custody of Carrie's 2 daughters. They were no longer under the influence of their father.
When I appreciated the true story of what happened to Carrie Baker and the fact that her murderer was brought to justice, I give complete credit to Bill Johnston and Carrie's family picking him to hire as their lawyer. Because he was a former federal prosecutor, he knew law enforcement wasn't going to want him butting in on their business. But he also knew as a civil lawyer the way to get it done almost the same way, getting access to the real file and the real evidence. He couldn't have done a more beautiful job, and Matt Baker is sitting behind bars today because of Bill Johnston.
Saw you dancing in the twilight glow, a melody only my heart could know. Your laughter sang like a sweet refrain, pulling me closer through the joyful rain. Your love's a spark, lighting up the skies, echoes of forever in your eyes. Every heart beats a song so true. I'll dance through the years just holding you. Soft embrace, the world fades behind.